Welcome to Little Steps, Big Gains and the final video of our series on Let's Talk Incontinence. We're here in this video, we are going to talk about tips and strategies to maintain pelvic floor function. Now, while this video is kind of geared towards individuals that have been doing my 30-day pelvic floor strengthening program with me, there are tips for everyone. So, to maintain pelvic floor function, we are going to take in 3 strategies. I'm going to teach you tips and techniques to maintain pelvic floor muscle strength, maintain pelvic floor muscle length, very important, and maintain pelvic floor muscle coordination and timing. I'll break down all 3 of those with you and give you tips and techniques to target each one. Number 1, maintaining pelvic floor muscle strength. Okay, if you've been hanging out with me, this will be a review, but a great reference for the future. All right, the pelvic floor is a hammock-shaped group of muscles that go from the front of your pelvis to the back. It's like a hammock, okay? However, there are things called fascial connections or connective tissue that go from your hammock all the way to the sides of your sits bones. So it creates this floor at the bottom of your pelvis, okay? It is responsible for holding up your entire core. Therefore, it has to be strong. We have to maintain that pelvic floor muscle strength. There are 3 strategies that you can go about doing this. That hammock, it actually has 3 main layers up and down. Within those layers, there are 2 types of muscle fibers. And if you're thinking like, why do I need to know this? Well, we can target each type of muscle fiber individually and separately since they have different roles. I'm going to explain what those muscle fibers are, strategies that you can do to maintain the strength in each one. On top of that hammock, okay, it has those connective tissue, those connective fascial connections on the side, okay? Those connections are some muscles that can go through the pelvis, okay, and attach to the femur. That's your bones on your hip, okay? They attach there. So I kind of call them like strings on a hammock. Now, what happens if you take 2 strings on a hammock and bring them closer? It allows the hammock to lengthen down, right? And then what happens when you pull strings apart? It lifts the hammock. So therefore, in order to lift and lower our hammock, our pelvic floor, we can target those muscles. The research supports it. They've done some research where they have only strengthened those muscles, the strings on the hammock, and they didn't even touch the pelvic floor muscles, and they found indirect strength benefits. I'm going to actually quote that research study and show you the exercises that they did so that you can maintain the strength in those muscles as well. Let's go back to those muscle fibers. Okay, this is true in our whole body. We have 2 main types of muscle fibers. Within our hammock are 3 layers. The very top layer is mostly, underline, bold mostly, okay, comprised of a type 1 muscle fiber, okay? This is also called a slow twitch. It is responsible for the lift and hold of our core, and therefore it has a lot of endurance, but not a lot of power. Then on the bottom 2 layers, they're mostly comprised of a type 2 muscle fiber, which is called a fast twitch muscle fiber. These have a lot more power to them, but not a lot of endurance and hold. So, what are individual ways to target each one? So let's start with those type 1 muscle fibers. I call them our endurance muscle fibers. Okay, so first and foremost, continue our elevator exercises. If you're new to these, I'm going to demonstrate them. So first we're going to be in a seated position. I will demonstrate. Our toes are going to be pointed out. We are going to relax. Okay, if you're in an elevator, we're in ground floor all the way down, all right? Basement level. Then we will point our toes forwards and we will lift our pelvic floor level by level like it is on an elevator. We will hold it at the top for endurance for 10 seconds, okay? Then we will take those toes and we will point them out. We are going to relax our elevator to the basement ground level. That is going to be an elevator exercise. I'll demonstrate that. Then on top of that, you can upgrade it, and we added a little bit of inner abdominal pressure, okay? So bringing those toes forward, lifting the elevator, holding it at the top, and then coughing 3 times. And then bringing the toes out, lowering and relaxing. Same thing with a sit to stand, kind of increasing the inner abdominal pressure so that top layer, those endurance muscle fibers, are really challenged, okay? Let me go ahead and demonstrate those exercises. Our elevator exercise. Out and relax the pelvic floor, ground level. Toes forward, lift, level by level, holding the pelvic floor at the top, 10 seconds, lowering and bringing the toes out. That was phase 1. Phase 2, okay? Bringing the pelvic floor, lifting up, level by level, holding at the top, relaxing, breathing in, pointing the toes back out. A few other avenues to maintain the strength in those type 1 muscle fibers of your pelvic floor. Well, exercise modalities. There is research to support Tai Chi, yoga, and Pilates. One research study had individuals participate in a Pilates exercise session 1 time a week and found benefits, but it was 8 to 52 weeks, so you have to give it some time. If you're interested in something like Tai Chi, I have a few Tai Chi inspired, the keyword is inspired, programs, because I have incorporated my certifications in Tai Chi with LSVT Big for Parkinson's. I combined them in order to make a new program that has benefits for everyone. You can check out those. I'm going to include links for those exercise programs in the description below. If you already have an exercise modality that works for you, keep it. That's phenomenal. Just start to incorporate pelvic floor lifts during it. So, for example, if you really enjoy something like weightlifting, let me demonstrate. We'll talk about timing in a minute, okay? But we breathe in and relax. We breathe out, lift the pelvic floor level by level, breathing in, relaxing the pelvic floor, okay? Breathing in and relaxing. Breathing out, lifting level by level, and then bringing it down, and then lowering that pelvic floor. Same thing with something like boxing, if you enjoy that. Breathing in, relaxing the pelvic floor. Breathing out, lift it up, and then do some of your exercises. 2 other things that are phenomenal. Incorporating pelvic floor lifts during sit to stands, going from sitting to standing, as well as squats, okay? I'm going to demonstrate those, but let me kind of explain the concepts now. In a seated position, I'm going to be breathing in and relaxing. Then I'm going to squeeze my pelvic floor while I exhale and stand, okay? So I'll be squeezing level by level, standing up. So great. Relaxing that pelvic floor while I breathe in on the way down. Same thing with squats, okay? I'll demonstrate this, but I'll be in a relaxed position, lowering my pelvic floor, relaxing and breathing in on the way down. When I stand up, I'm going to exhale and lift the pelvic floor level by level. So you can incorporate pelvic floor lifts during squats and sit to stands. Let me go ahead and show you. Sit to stands and squats, okay? Remember our timing. We breathe in and relax, okay? Breathe out, lift the pelvic floor, up, up, up. Breathe in and relax, okay? Breathe out, lift the pelvic floor. Squats, the exact same concept, okay? When you squat, you want a hip hinge. In other words, stick your butt out as if you were going to sit in a chair. You never want your knees going over your toes. This is bad for your knees. This is what you want, as if you were going to sit in a chair, a hip hinge, okay? good posture. It is ideal if you have a countertop to hold on to where you can really stick your butt out. That's phenomenal. I'm going to do it without that since I don't have it in front of me. Okay, so I'm going to breathe in, lower, relax. Breathe out, lift that pelvic floor, down and relax, up and lift. Okay, so that is how you can incorporate your pelvic floor lifts every day when you go from sitting to standing, as well as during some squats. Type 2 muscle fibers, okay, are fast twitch muscle fibers. These are responsible for those fast, hard, powerful muscle contractions, but they just don't have a lot of endurance. So we can continue or start, if you're hanging out with us, power flicks, fast, hard, powerful muscle contractions. 1 time a day, 25. But these are so easy going forward because you can do this during commercial breaks, doing the dishes, just continuing your power flicks. Next step is to continue them in life, okay? This would be your knack exercise, or also called your pelvic brace activity. Okay, you do a power flick right before anything that causes inner abdominal pressure, like a cough, a sneeze, a sit to stand, lifting something. All right, so you squeeze that pelvic floor, fast, hard, powerful, then you cough. Okay, this was an exercise we were doing that you can continue doing. Squeeze, cough, squeeze, cough, okay? Incorporate that in life. Our last strategy for maintaining pelvic floor muscle strength is to target and include those hip muscles, the external rotators, specifically where we have been targeting, and I recommend targeting the obturator internus, okay? This is why, this is your explanation for why during the elevator exercises, we were doing those toe things. We're pointing our toes out and pointing our toes forward. This is your explanation for why. Because for your elevator exercises, you don't have to do that. You can do those in the car during commercials without pointing your toes, but it just adds a lot of extra strength benefits to incorporate it. Here we go. This is why. All right, so that obturator internus that's on the hip through the pelvis onto the hammock. Call it like strings on a hammock. Your hammock goes forwards to back. You like that? Forward to back. Now, I'm going to turn it to the side just to kind of show you a visual. When our toes are pointed out, those muscles are actually coming together and your hammock is lowered. This is our opportunity to lengthen and relax it. We'll talk about strategies to lengthen it in a minute, okay? Then we rotate our toes forwards and it actually pulls those muscles apart and lifts the hammock. We pointed our toes out, pointed our toes forwards, okay? This is how we can lengthen and lower the hammock, the pelvic floor, without even touching those muscles. I have talked about this, and there is a study that supported it where they only worked on those muscles and not the pelvic floor. I'm going to show you the exercises that they did. They did them 3 times a week, 3 sets of 10. And if you've been hanging out with me, does that sound familiar? It should. That's the same dosage we've been doing. Everything we do follows research. So let me demonstrate the exercises we've been doing that you can continue to do for those external rotators. And then let me show you a few other exercises that you can add. Sitting external rotation exercises, phase 1. Windshield wipers. These are done during elevator exercises, supplemental. But good posture, rotating the toes out, rotating the toes forward. When you rotate the toes, everything's connected. It rotates those hip bones, those femurs. We rotate, those muscles come close together to lower the hammock. We come forward, those muscles come out, and it lifts the hammock. So just doing some windshield wipers. Now for strengthening, phase 1, isometric clamshells, okay? So feet are together. Taking your hands on your knees, trying your best to pull your knees apart from each other. This can be done with your hands or something like a belt, a dog leash, okay? also having that firm belt. You can go ahead and try your best to separate your knees. It's a good thing if the insides of your feet come up and holding for 3 and bringing it down. That's an isometric strategy to strengthen those muscles. Our third one is step overs. Okay, so step up, out, rotate the toe out, step up and in, rotate the toe in, as if you're stepping over a bathtub, in and out of the car, okay? We've done 10 on one side, 10 on the other, step overs. It's the third exercise, 3 sets of 10. External rotation strengthening exercises with an elastic band. Okay, good posture. Take your band, put it underneath your legs, the thighs, wrap it around and tighten it up. Okay? First exercise, windshield wipers with the band. Okay? Good posture. Feet are hip width apart. Take the toes, point them out. Toes come forwards. Heels stay there. It's only the toes, hence a windshield wiper. Out, forwards. Exercise number 2, knee falls. Feet are together. Both knees can fall apart at the same time. It's good to see the insides of the feet curl up, or you can do one at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and take my left knee and separate it. Keep that knee there while my other knee goes out and in. Whew, that's a good one. We do 5 and then you switch. You'll feel it. Exercise number 3, step outs with the band, okay? But a little bit different. So I'm going to step my right foot up, out, toe points out. I need to keep that foot there while I step my opposite leg up and out. I do not want the first knee curling in. It has to stay out to strengthen those muscles. Then I can take the first foot, bring it forwards, bring it forwards. So it goes out, out, in, and in. Out, out, in, okay? And then you do 5 and switch sides. Out, out, in. All of these exercises are explained and demonstrated in my 30-day pelvic floor strengthening program. Some supplemental external rotation strengthening exercises. In the study I have been quoting, they did 3 exercises. First off, they did isometric external rotation against a wall. We've been doing it in sitting. I will show you how to do it in laying now. The second one they did was clamshells. I'll demonstrate that. The third one they did in the research study was monster walks. I'll demonstrate that as well. That one is very high level, not exactly appropriate for everybody. That's exactly what the little guy said back there with that snort too. Okay, I'm not gonna kick her, but we can do external rotation isometric laying down. So laying down with our knees bent, okay, we can take that bottom knee, push it into the bed as if you want to rotate it out, but the bed is stopping you. The second one is a clamshell. Take the top knee, separate the knees up and down, okay? This is very similar to our knee falls in sitting, isn't it? Okay, the third one I'll demonstrate, monster walks. Monster walks. This is the last exercise that they did in that research study. They incorporated monster walks. Let me show you. Put a band around those legs. Semi-squat. So hip hinge first. Stick your butt out as if you were going to sit down first. Then bend your knees around 120 degrees. The back stays straight. You're going to keep your toes pointed forward and step, keeping the knee out. Do not let it collapse in. Let me demonstrate here. Okay? So stepping, don't letting that knee curl in, keep it out. Step. That is a monster walk. I have modified this with people and now you can see why we've been doing step in and out. So good for us. Okay, I've had people hold on to a countertop and had them just do a step forward and back, keeping that knee out from collapsing it. I love doing squats with these. Toes are slightly pointed out. Good posture or holding on to something. Hip hinge back. Always stick the butt out. Then bend the knees down. Try to keep the knees out. The band, do not let it collapse your knees in. Keep them out. You can add your elevator exercise to this. All right, so relax, breathe in, lift the elevator. Relax, squeeze and lift. The whole time I'm not letting my knees collapse in. That is another avenue to strengthen those muscles. In the study, they did 3 sets of 10, 3 times a week. Just like in our program, we always follow the research. Now that we talked about maintaining pelvic floor muscle strength, let's talk about maintaining pelvic floor muscle length. This is so important, especially if you have a neurological disease, okay? What happens when our pelvic floor is too tight, too tense, and unable to relax? We will get complications, okay? You may get what's called urge incontinence, okay? If your pelvic floor is not relaxing, your bladder may not be filling all the way, and then you might be getting these sudden and intense urges where your bladder is telling your brain, I have to go, when the bladder isn't even full all the way. It can hold up to 2 cups. It may not be full, and it's still sending these signals to the brain, these urges. That can be followed by bladder spasms and involuntary leakage. That is called urge incontinence. We have to be able to relax the pelvic floor. If we are not relaxing, we may not void and empty our bladder all the way. The problem with that is we can get urine left behind, which is a breeding ground for bacteria, and we can get recurrent urinary tract infections. We have to be able to void everything, empty the bladder via relaxation. Another thing we can get is just pelvic pain during sex, and constipation. Those are all complications from having a pelvic floor that's too tight, unable to relax. You can see why this is just as important as pelvic floor strengthening, especially if you have urge incontinence. How can we relax the pelvic floor? We can use the diaphragm. All right, this is a great reference for anybody that's already learned this with me. That diaphragm is a dome on the top underneath your lungs and heart, the top of the core. It's a dome that faces down. The pelvic floor is a hammock that faces up, okay? Look at that, the top of the core, the bottom of the core. They're supposed to work together. When you inhale, your diaphragm lowers down, takes in the oxygen. If it lowers down, that is the opportunity for you to relax the bladder, the pelvic floor, okay? Relax the pelvic floor. Let it lower, lengthen, and stretch out. Okay, so you inhale, relax it down. You exhale the carbon dioxide, let that diaphragm recoil back up. That is your opportunity to lift the pelvic floor, okay? So you inhale and relax, you exhale and lift, okay? So use that diaphragm to stretch out the pelvic floor via diaphragmatic breathing, also called 3-dimensional breathing. Some people call it belly breathing. It has different names to it. All right, I'm going to demonstrate that. But what we would be doing is we would breathe in through the nose, down. You want your belly to expand. That means your diaphragm's lowering, right? If your belly expands, that's your opportunity to relax your pelvic floor down, right? Remember this whole thing? Down, down, all right? Down and down, all right? Exhale, carbon dioxide expels, diaphragm recoils. Then you can let that pelvic floor up, okay? So breathing in, expand the belly, relax, breathing out, okay? We have been combining these, and you can get extra benefits if you include the hips with it, right? The external rotation. This is why, this is your explanation, okay, for why when we were rotating our toes out, we relaxed because the strings of the hammock came closer together, it allowed the hammock room to relax even more, okay? So you pulled the strings in, you pushed the diaphragm down, and now that allows the hammock to lengthen better. Now you know why, okay? So you can incorporate your diaphragmatic breathing with your external rotation at the same time. Let me go ahead and demonstrate how to do this next, but you can incorporate this diaphragmatic breathing throughout the day or even on the toilet when you can relax, try to expel all of the urine in the bladder, or during bowel movements that can help with evacuation, diaphragmatic breathing. This is also why things like yoga, Tai Chi, and Pilates can be effective because it also incorporates deep breathing and relaxation. So let me show you those diaphragmatic breathing techniques while we're incorporating the external rotation. Diaphragmatic breathing, also called three-dimensional breathing or belly breathing. So important, okay? Sitting up tall, hands are on the belly. Sometimes people put one hand on the chest because you only want your belly moving, expanding, and not the chest, okay? So we always breathe in through the nose like you're smelling a rose and out through the mouth like you're blowing out a candle. We want that exhale to be forced like you're blowing that candle, okay? Stent open the airways, expel the carbon dioxide. We want to breathe in for about 2 seconds, out for around 4. We want that exhale to be longer to get all the carbon dioxide out, okay? So I'm gonna put my hands on my belly, relax. I'm gonna be breathing in, out, in, out. Okay, we want the belly moving. Now you can add the hips, those external rotators. All right, when the toes point out, those muscles actually come closer together. That allows your hammock to lengthen even easier, better, okay? So the toes are out, the hammock's relaxed, we breathe in. And then we can bring the toes and breathe out. Because that pulled the strings apart, kind of lifted that hammock a little. We don't have to do the exercise there where you do the elevator. Just relax. This is for relaxation. Just for relaxing, okay? Breathing in and lowering. Breathing out. I always recommend doing these exercises between your elevator exercises, before or after. We need these relaxation exercises so much. Incorporate them throughout the day as well. Last but not least, maintaining pelvic floor muscle timing and coordination. Guess what? We've been doing that during our pelvic floor muscle strengthening exercises and length relaxation exercises. We have been inhaling during the relaxation and exhaling during the lifting, okay? Your elevator exercises, right? Breathing in and relaxing, lifting with the exhale. Your neck exercises, your pelvic brace activity, lift, cough, all right? Your diaphragmatic breathing, relaxing, lowering down, all right? Coordination and timing have been incorporated throughout all of those exercises. But coordinating the diaphragm with the pelvic floor is so important to maintain pelvic floor muscle timing and coordination. Some other strategies which will help maintain pelvic floor function. All right, the research is there. Number 1, stay active, even mild to moderate activity. One study showed that habitual walking alone reduced the odds of developing stress incontinence by 1/2. Just habitual walking, stay active. Number 2, maintain adequate hydration. This is so important, especially it's so hard for people that have incontinence. They're like, the more I drink, the more it just comes right out. The problem with not drinking is the urine then becomes concentrated. Then concentrated urine will irritate the bladder lining, causing urges, all right? It's the exact thing we don't want. So we absolutely have to maintain adequate hydration. Now, to prevent the bladder from overfull really fast like that and leakage, I just recommend small sips throughout the day. It's a great strategy to maintain that hydration without overfilling the bladder. Next, avoiding schedule, okay? This is really, really effective. So if you have stress incontinence, really kind of going to the bathroom every few hours to avoid the bladder getting overly full. However, if you have urge incontinence, okay, remember you're getting these urges, intense sudden signals to the brain when the bladder is not even full. So we may want to increase the time between voids. The average adult goes to the bathroom every 2 to 4 hours, and the older adult every 1.5 to 2 hours, okay? So if you are going to the bathroom every 20 minutes because of urges, maybe slowly increase the time there. Slow and steady. We want to avoid that just in case voiding because it's causing bad habits. So going to the bathroom too often can actually be a bad thing. Now, what do you do if you're in the middle of, you have this intense urge? That's where you can integrate and apply that urge suppression technique I talked about with my video on urinary incontinence, okay? Those 4 to 6 quick, hard power flicks, okay? And then relaxing. It can be a reflex to relax those bladder spasms. And last, avoid bladder irritants. We need that to maintain pelvic floor function. Those are a few supplemental strategies which will help. So as a review, in this video, we talked about techniques to maintain pelvic floor muscle strength. We targeted individual muscle fibers and alternated between them. Then we talked about strategies to maintain those hip rotators, which also indirectly strengthen the pelvic floor. So 3 strategies there to maintain pelvic floor muscle strength. For some individuals, well, for all of us, it's so important to maintain pelvic floor muscle length. This can be done through those relaxation exercises. Utilize the diaphragm to lower it down. So many modalities for doing that. So important. And then maintaining pelvic floor muscle timing and coordination. Everything is supposed to work together. Now, I have videos on all of these techniques and strategies that are more in depth. I'm going to include links in the description below for each one of those videos that I just want to make a resource for you. Now, if you enjoyed this video or if you found something educational or helpful, please press like. Give me feedback. I know to make more content like this. I'd also love it if you would press subscribe below, or even better, share with somebody that you think might benefit. My vision is free resources and programs. I have exercise programs and they're constantly expanding. If you subscribe, you'll get notifications when new programs come up and new videos. But thank you so much for joining. I'm thrilled that you're here. I would love it if you would keep coming along this journey because little steps together, we can make some big gains.